All right, let's get into Mastery by Robert Greene.
Robert Greene, Mastery. Blink number 1. You don't need inborn talent to become a master. Just follow the steps of masters before you.
I think most of us are familiar with the 10,000 hour rule. This is Malcolm Gladwell who brought this into our vernacular, but it's that idea that if you do something for 10,000 hours, you will become a master at it. But the important part of this and the key to achieving true expertise of any skill is not just practicing, but in practicing it the correct way. So I know I grew up hearing practice makes perfect, but no, it does not. Someone finally told me, no, you have to correct your mistakes because practice actually makes permanent. So if you practice something wrong for 10,000 hours, you will be a master at doing it wrong. So within your time of practice, you have to have self-analysis and correction. And the point that is being made here by Robert Greene is you have to follow other masters. You have to have guides that are excelling, so that you can mimic what they're doing that got them to the point of mastery. And this artists, painters, this was something that we really picked up on in their development, is they would mimic other painters. So by really zooming in and analyzing each brush stroke, they can work on their technique so that they could be able to copy those brush strokes like the masters before them, and then put their spin on it and their touch, their character. But yeah, if you're in a field where you are a pioneer, self-critique is going to be key to using your practice time well to develop expertise.
Blink number 2. Each of us has an inner calling which guides us towards our vocation in life, a discipline or field that we wish to master.
Yeah, all of us when we were kids, we had adults that would ask us, what do you want to be when you grow up? And maybe we were telling them what we thought they wanted to hear, but often we were just honest. We said the thing that intrigued us the most, or the thing that we connected to the most. So it isn't until we get to a point where everyone is telling you to grow up or, for me it was, what's your backup plan? Being a creative is not going to pay the bills. It's all about the bills, these stupid bills. You got to live for your bills. Oh, come on. Follow your intuition, follow your gut. The thing that comes naturally to you, the thing that comes easiest to you, is often the thing that you can't understand why it's so difficult for other people. That's a huge highlighter to this is your purpose. The fact that you get it intuitively when others don't. Others have to learn it as a skill. I know I wanted to be a drummer. The first instrument, I would get pots and pans out of my grandma's kitchen and my mom's kitchen, and I would use the wooden spoons and I would just play. I would bang them, and I'm watching music videos when MTV was first coming out, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be Phil Collins, And I asked for a drum set, and knowing how loud and obnoxious a drum set was, for Christmas I ended up getting this 3/4 size acoustic guitar. And I was so disappointed because it's not what I wanted. I really wanted to play drums. And I think I put the guitar in the closet for a couple of years, never touched it. I was so mad that that's what I got. And my brother wanted a guitar. He got an ukulele. So it turns out when we became teenagers and realized that playing instruments was actually super cool and would be fun to do, I got that guitar out. He got the ukulele out, and he upgraded that for a bass. And then I eventually got an electric guitar, and I just decided to make guitar happen and make it work for me. It was so difficult for me to learn. I had to grind it to really figure it out. And I was blown away by people who would just pick it up and learn it quickly, or they would have an ear, they could just play something by ear, because for them they had a talent. But everything I could do on the guitar was a skill. I had to fight to learn everything. It didn't come naturally. So that's the kind of the difference there, is what is coming to you naturally and what are you fighting to learn.
Blink number 3. Your main goal in a new field should not be immediate success or money, but to learn as much as possible.
They mentioned the church a few times now. That was a big part of my upbringing, was being involved in the church from a young age. I kind of sought it out. I was raised with the knowledge of church and religion, and then as a teenager I really got a passion for all that I could learn, and that turned into practical hands-on knowledge when I started working with technology. So being in the bands, running sound, troubleshooting PA systems, and then getting into working with cameras and video editing and lighting. So the opportunity to learn hands-on skills and a trade with equipment that I couldn't afford on my own yet was invaluable. So then when I did end up going to college for expertise in this field, I already had experience. So any way that you can get hands-on knowledge and experience is so beneficial.
Blink number 4. The best way to learn a discipline or skill is to have a mentor who shows you the way.
Yeah, that's it. And every teacher teaches for the sake of their students learning and applying and multiplying the wisdom that they've gained. It's just education until you put it into action, then it becomes wisdom. So for you to be a mentor and watch everyone that you poured and invested your time into grow exponentially more than you could, that's the whole point. That's how we thrive as a society and a community. It's that exponential growth, because the people that you have taught and invested in are now going to teach and invest in more people, and it's just knowledge and truth and wisdom just grows and grows and grows. So for me, it was specifically this: lots of mentors that let me work through things, troubleshoot, get hands-on experience, but they were the guardrails to make sure that my failures were slightly contained and making sure that I was gaining the wisdom and understanding of what each of those failures could teach me. So a great example of this was being in a worship team as a teenager, still in high school, and our weekly rehearsals, there was a handful of us that really wanted to learn how to run sound systems. So the director of that team would have us come maybe a half hour or an hour early, and before we even came into the room, they would go and undo something in the signal flow of the sound system. And then each one of us would have to come in and take turns just trying to figure it out. So they knew that if one of us was running sound for the week and no other leadership was there, they could trust us to handle anything that could happen in this shared space. And I thought, man, I didn't fully get it at the time. I thought it was cool, because you got that sense of pride every time you found the source of the problem and you fixed it. So to walk in, follow the protocol of turning everything on, and there's nothing coming out of the PA, and then you track it down like a PI and you reconnect the missing link. It felt so good, but now I fully understand the value of that hands-on training.
Blink number 5. Once you complete your apprenticeship, you must be bold enough to think innovatively and challenge the very rules you learned before.
I love the point about traveling. That was the biggest education for me. It really broke me out of my comfort zone, and it broke the glass ceiling on life as I knew it. Because you spend, a decade and a half, 2 decades in a small town, and you start to think that everyone's opinions that you're familiar with are the opinions of the world, until you go out in the world and you realize, oh, okay, this is what diversity is all about. Not just in culture, but in mindset. How each community approaches their fulfillment of life. You realize, oh, I don't have to do this life exactly like everyone else that I'm familiar with. I can choose my own path to joy and love and fulfillment. So that really started me on that journey, was backpacking Europe, doing missions trips to third world countries, living in Hawaii. It really broadened my perspective of how to have a fulfilling, thriving life.
Blink number 6. You can learn to problem solve in new and creative ways by broadening and training your mind.
There you go. 10,000 hours of practice in a given field. So the thing that came to mind for me is season 5, episode 22 of Seinfeld. George Costanza, he is the Eeyore of the group. He is always down on his luck. Things never work out for him. And then in this episode, he just decides to do the opposite. So in every circumstance, he takes a beat. He thinks about what old George would normally say or do, and then he mentors himself and just does the opposite. He orders the opposite food, and he goes and talks to the girl, whatever it was, and then everything just started working out. So that's what we need to do, is we need people in our corner that are going to not pull punches and actually tell us when we're being the old George. You're getting poor results because you're making poor choices. Your mindset is poor. It is small thinking. Small thinking will get you small rewards. Here's a quote that is pretty brutal. Small minds cannot grasp great ideas. To their narrow comprehension, their purblind vision, nothing seems really great and important but themselves. By James G. Fraser. Another good quote here is Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change. So if you're old George and nothing's working, change. Change what you're doing. Change how you're approaching every situation that is an opportunity for you to thrive or falter.
Blink number 7. Mastery. Practice a skill until it's automatic so that your mind and body act as one, freeing you to focus on the bigger picture.
This is a quote that I've heard many times, especially in the context of being a musician, and it's by anonymous. There are multiple sources going back to 1902 where this quote has been used. But don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. I was just having this conversation with another musician where we were talking about when you make a mistake, it doesn't mean you're a bad musician, but could you have practiced that one portion of the piece to the point where it would be nearly impossible for you to make that mistake? So it doesn't have an effect on your identity of being a phenomenal musician, but knowing that you could have been an expert at that piece to where you don't even need your brain. You don't need to focus. You can be as distracted as possible, and that piece is almost playing itself because you have so much expertise and so much muscle memory attached to how you perform it. And that's really the level we're talking about when it comes to mastery. And having the time to be a master of anything, you really have to pick a thing. You have to focus. It's so nearly impossible to be a master at multiple skills, talents. You have to just focus. This was the Kobe Bryant method of practice, where he would be in the gym at 5 a.m. because he knew his competitors wouldn't be. He's getting hours of muscle memory, getting it right, fixing every possible error in his game, while his other defending champions, other opponents at the highest level are still sleeping.
You just heard the blinks from Robert Greene's Mastery. Its key message is that to achieve mastery, you need to find your own unique inner calling, study and learn a great deal under a mentor during an apprenticeship, and finally, develop an independent and creative way of thinking. Studying the lives of other great masters can give valuable insight on this task.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, watching the Bulls dynasty, Pippen and Jordan just dominating everybody. And I would spend hours a day, sun up to sundown, just shooting hoops in my backyard. And I wore out the grass. It made my own dirt court. I just loved playing basketball. But I was never really good at it. So you have to have some self-recognition and some awareness that me, a 5'11" guy of average build, even though I had a love for the game of basketball, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really understood it. I could have had Phil Jackson as my coach. I'm never going to be Pippen status. I'm never going to be Jordan status. Like, these are the greatest players of the game. Now, maybe I could throw some elbows like Rodman, but I would never have his strength. I would never have his charisma, his confidence, his bravado, what made him dominate on the floor. That's just not me. So you have to know, not only is this a passion, but is this something I'm naturally good at and prepared to get to the highest level? Okay, maybe that's worth investing the time it will take to become a master. This, to me, this is very helpful. It's very insightful. The hardest part of all of this is choosing one thing. We have so many options, and it's so easy now to be informed and be well educated and even get experience in all of the things that interest you. But what is the one thing that you want to master? And then get somebody that will help you get to the next level and the next level and keep pushing you until you're the absolute best that you can possibly be.